we hardly ever think about our breathing because it's so automatic. So when our metabolism speeds up, like when we're running or we're lifting heavy things, our breathing automatically increases. And when our metabolism slows down, like when we're asleep or resting, the breathing slows down as well. And so because of that, we just don't think much about it. Dr. Buteyko, when he was at the library, he discovered that as far back as the American Civil War, a doctor called Da Costa had discovered that this automatic breathing pattern can get out of whack. It can get higher than it should do. So it's like blood pressure. You know, blood pressure is an automatic process and normally it stays in the right place, but sometimes it can get higher than it should do and it doesn't go back down to where it is in the normal range. It's the same with breathing. And when that happens, what Da Costa found was that you get all kinds of symptoms. Now there's a whole lot of breathing ones here. Like you might get short of breath or get a chest tightness or coughing, producing lots of mucus or a blocked nose or running nose. And then there are some more. Like you might also get lightheaded or dizzy or tingling, can't concentrate, forget lots of things, feel anxious or depressed. Your digestive tract goes a bit crazy. And you might also get tired a lot. A lot of people who breathe badly lack stamina. Or you get sore muscles. So there's a very big range of symptoms because breathing affects the whole body. Okay? So hyperventilation is, as I mentioned before, it's generally thought of as people panting, but it actually just means that you are perhaps breathing a little faster than normal. So usually adults, when they're resting, they breathe about 12 times a minute and they breathe about half a litre of air each time, which works out at about 6 litres of air a minute. If you breathe 20 times a minute, that would give you 10 litres of air instead of 6. Who would notice if they're breathing once every 3 seconds instead of once every 5? Like nobody. And then if you start to use your upper chest or you start breathing through your mouth, then you add a bit of extra effort to it. And so without any problems, you can treble the amount of air that you need to breathe without anybody even noticing. But your body knows because it's not getting enough oxygen. Okay, and so that's why you get all those symptoms, you know, when the body doesn't get enough oxygen, and there's a few other things that happen as well, which we'll get to in a moment. If you just breathe like 20 times a minute, you know, for a couple of minutes, nothing is going to happen to you. But if you take it out like to a day, for example, instead of 17,000 breaths per day, you're breathing 28,000 times, you know, so you're doing a lot more work. No wonder people are tired when they breathe too much. Instead of breathing 360 litres per hour, you'd be breathing 600 litres per hour. That's a lot more pollution, a lot more dust and pollen and drying and cooling that you're doing just by breathing a little bit quicker than you're supposed to. Let alone, you know, without including the mouth breathing or upper chest breathing as well. Why do we do this? We call this hyperventilation, even though, you know, it doesn't mean panting. It just means, hyperventilation just means breathing more air than you need to do a particular activity. So why do we breathe? Because of stress. Okay, now stress does not just mean worrying about things. Stress, there was a Canadian doctor in the 1920s who discovered that stress caused a whole lot of physical problems. His name was Hans Selye, and he talks about, you know, like good stress, bad stress, all of that sort of thing. So some stress, like being too cold, is stressful. Being too hot is stressful. Doing too much exercise, not doing enough exercise, eating too much, being really excited about, say, the first date, or, you know, an exam coming up. All of these things are stress. They cause stress on the body. And physically we're the same as early man. So the thing that stress does to us is it does a whole lot of functions in the body that are required to help us run or fight. So it's called the fight or flight response. One of the most important things is that your airways open up and you breathe more, because you're supposed to be going to run, or fight something. If you were about to be attacked by a tiger, the last thing you need to worry about is digesting your lunch. So things like digestion switches off, the immune response switches off, your skin has less blood flow. There's all the sort of physical things that you don't need get turned off. The things that help you to escape get turned on a bit more. And so it was very useful for this guy, who had to get away from things like bears and lions and chase animals for food and so on. And physically we're the same as him, so we still have it, even though we hardly ever have to run away from bears. Well, we don't in Australia anyway. I don't know about you guys here. Not in New York, I don't think. So the things that stress us might be things like pollution or pollen, or mental stress like learning new things, being sick, and worrying and excitement. And not only are these things, you can't run away from them or fight them, but they're also not short-lived. Like I imagine, like the caveman and, or anyone out in the woods with the bear, it's a short thing, you're either going to get away from him or you're not. But we might have pollution, for days on end. Because of that, these things are causing long-term stress. Okay, like Da Costa found in the American Civil War, we start to get some of these sorts of symptoms going because our body is under constant stress. Now, one of the things that hyperventilation is really mostly connected to in the Western world is asthma. Now, those of you who have asthma probably can relate to that when you've actually got the symptoms, that you begin to breathe deeper and more noisily. What studies have shown is that people who have asthma are actually breathing about 3 times more air than they need to, even when they don't have the symptoms. Now, asthma is defined as having 3 components. Now, when you get asthma, what happens is the smooth muscle starts to tighten, and the inner lining swells up, and the mucus production goes into overdrive. So there are 3 main problems with asthma: tight, smooth muscle, swelling inside the airway, and too much mucus.